Welcome to the Louchen Bros podcast. This show is hosted by Brian Louchen.
And I'm Kevin Louchen.
And we are bros who talk about nerd stuff.
All right. So this episode we got coming up is definitely a throwback. It's going to be based on the movie Waterworld. So I am irrationally passionate about this movie because in my lifetime, this has always been told like it's a huge flop. It was terrible. You know, so you get into the numbers and that can be part of the reason why. But basically for most people that are probably in my life that are much younger than me and don't care about this movie, this is basically a post-apocalypse time period where the very relevant to nowadays, where all the polar ice caps and have melted in the world, and basically all of the land has been covered up by water. So it's just giant ocean out there, and there are survivors trying to live through this. It doesn't specify if it's like just a handful of years or even decades. I get the impression it's at least a few decades, to be honest with you. But it's past that, and you got survivors just trying to survive. And within that, you have communities, people, interactions, and there's just this kind of nonstop search to just survive, but also find dry land. So to me, it's like the Road Warrior, but in water. And being a byproduct of the 80s, that was very relevant to me. This movie, to me, is very on par. Maybe it was before its time period, but this story alone, I think, is so unusual, but also so relevant, not only to the time period and what we're dealing with, but also just the fact that it gets kind of consistent with, hey, there's a lot of bad stuff, bad interactions, people going here. Like, there's games on this now. There's movies on this. There's shows on this. Who hasn't seen a post-apocalypse thing? This is so relevant, even though it's 30 years ago. But it's still good to this day because I think the story is so good. There are elements that you might not like as much, but I think just the story is spot on. I mean, did you get that impression that was a story good, or am I crazy?
Wait, are we talking about the Road Warriors from WWE, Kev? Or WWF?
No, the actual Road Warrior and from Mel Gibson.
Oh, you're basically talking about this is Mad Max on water, basically.
Basically! I think that's a very relevant way. So, like, there is a lot of impression that that's happening. You got survivors surviving and in a usual way in water. Before that, I don't recall anything. In fact, I was telling this to one of my daughters, and she said that there's a show she watched that was very much like that. I'm like, yeah, because the concept is good. It's a good idea. They did it 30 years ago. And so to get in more of the plot line and whatnot, Kevin Costner is the main actor alongside of, what's his name? Dennis Hopper. Those are top tier actors, especially back then. I think some of it, trying to reflect, I don't think people loved Kevin Costner. Like, it took him forever to win some awards. Now, maybe people don't like his acting. That's fair. But I think he played a really good role with what he is. I mean, there's not a lot of their character development, and we can get to that. But the characters themselves, I think, did such a good role in this format. So it kind of starts off and they're interacting, Kevin Costner and this other person, and then there's these other band of people called smokers, and I don't even know how to describe them, but they're like they're literally
pirates.
smoke. They're pirates.
They're basically pirates.
But they're the majority. They're like the evil corporation. There's a large group of them, and they end up traveling on this basically oil tanker, and they're all looking essentially for this dry land. Kevin Costner's character, which they don't even have as an actual name, Mariner, is what I've seen.
Yeah,
I didn't hear his name mentioned
it's called
at all.
It's called Mariner.
And so it's like, to me, that maybe is why people couldn't relate, but at the same time, like, what he did as a person, he's a mutant. So there's an element to that you could see. And the reason why I mentioned some of this stuff...
He's a mutation! The elders.
Literally what they said. So when he goes and he finds this little floating platform of people, it's like walled off and everything. And so it's really kind of like this community. Like I literally can envision like this guy on a horse walking in the desert showing up to this town. It's literally the equivalent to me. That's how I see it.
Floating thing is called an atoll, actually.
Whatever, I don't care. The point is, he goes to trade and he tries to. He's got things people never see before. But in that realm, what you see is people are like a society, and there's not one ruler. There's these elders, which are the oldest people living there, and they're almost the government, if you will, and they're like, what's going on? But even within that, there's so much weirdness. Like they're trying to give away the girl to get impregnated because they're like basically hinting at, there's a lot of inbreeding possibly going on, which is crazy. But that's the thing, is that's an element of the story that is really, I think, maybe brushed under because you're just so focused on everything else. But like that's what they're focusing. That is why he gets essentially arrested, for lack of a better way of putting it, and detained, and they are looking to kill him once they find out he's a mutant.
Well, the reason why he actually got detained is by the elders. Basically, he killed one of the residents in self-defense. That's where one of the enforcers was defending him.
So, no, because the one guy's like, well, he did it in self-defense, the boss guy. But what happened is then the elder's like, yeah, but he's still a mutant, an abomination. So that's why he died. But that's the thing is, like, you can see social elements in that, in not only now, but even back then, is where it's like you have different types of people. And because they're different, they don't appreciate it, or it's like, no, you gotta kill them. They don't fit the mold. Like that happens today. Like if you're an outsider, you don't fit the mold. People don't like you. Yeah. They want to off you or get rid of you, one way or the other.
That's true. And some of the stuff that in society back then would not technically be appropriate for today's, social climate, as far as even some of this, the one-liners that are said in the movie and stuff like that. So.
And that just adds to my point. Like there's like the breeding aspect, and they said as soon as he didn't want it, it's like, what do you mean? You're out
inbreeding. You're talking.
You're out in the ocean and you don't want a chick. There's a huge element of you're alone. That's the thing, is we're not seafarers. Like we don't go traveling on our yacht on the weekends. No, okay.
I'm a drifter, Kev. Okay, I'm a drifter.
So we don't have yachts. We don't even have boats. I don't even have a toboggan. Like I got nothing. All right. So to do that, to live on that, to think about the days and weeks and potentially months of not seeing a person, and then to see one, like they were basically really honing in on the sense of, oh, there's a lot of lonely people there. And because you're lonely, not only are you lonely communicatively with another person, but people get horny. That happens. It's normal. Like, okay. And so when he's like, yeah, no, I'm not horny. And the elder's like, no, he's a freak. Something's weird about him. Don't let him leave. And so that's basically what happened. And obviously, I'm putting it in a different manner. It's so subtle when it happens in the movie, just to start off. Like, but to me, I'm like, that is crazy if you look inside the context of what's going on, how reflective that can be in so many different areas at different time periods in the world. So I think that is hugely important, even as little as the focus is on it. That's all I'm saying. And to me, that's one of the best things about it. But there's even more to that. So part of the huge plot line is the little girl, Enola, yes, who has the tattoo on her back. That is supposed to be a folklore, like that's the way to dry land. You know what I mean? So
that's the map, Kev. That's yes. Basically, and I thought it was hilarious with Enola, when basically she's on the boat and she's drawing all over his boat. She's singing, talking shit to him, like saying she's not scared of him. I mean, you can definitely tell she was annoying the shit out of him. And then he ends up through the story liking her and teaching her how to swim and stuff like that. I thought that was a pretty cool, subtle thing.
The line is almost like, well, because she's my friend. That's what he says like later on when you're on the big tanker. And it's like that is such a simple plot story. I think it almost, people don't like it. But in reality, that's a real thing. Like if you become friends with somebody, like, they say, blood isn't I can't remember. No, I'm gonna lie.
Water or something like that.
Well, that's for blood is thicker than water is like family, but blood isn't, or family isn't skin deep. Is what I think it is. Meaning you can be from all shapes of the world, and you can become best friends and basically be family. And I think that's what this basically happened. So I really, it hit me in the feels to really feel like family is like that. Our buddy we grew up with, Opie, to this day is one of my favorite people in the world. He is very obnoxious. I don't even know that he'll ever watch this, and I'm okay with that. But that's what he is. He is family. That's just always going to be family. And that's what this is an example of. What the story is. You don't have to be that, and especially if you look at the characters, and we'll get to that. But you can change, and to see that growth. The movie didn't have a ton of lines. So I don't know if people like that, don't like that, but they had a lot of growth for the characters. So I still think it shows.
There was some incredible one-liners in that movie.
And I got some down.
Speaking of which, like when you were talking about family, Kevin, it just reminded me of the Fast and the Furious meme with nothing stronger than family, and like everyone talking about it with Vin Diesel. It was just so funny. But yeah, some of the writing and the one-liners in the movie were hilarious. Nothing's free in Waterworld, and like I mentioned earlier, the elders saying he's a mutation, and excuse me, did I say anyone could leave? I hate sales, and like,
oh god,
and then let's drive, and he's driving the car, and then he's like a turd that won't flush.
No, the one
I got the last one, which is not appropriate, but basically saying like you're a total, freaking retard.
Yes,
so
yes, I have that one too.
Oh my god!
Like, look, people frown upon that.
I'm just like, holy shit.
People frown upon that. Give or take, whatever. We grew up in an era where that was normal. But Dennis Hopper's like, he's a total freaking retard.
Some of these scenes are comedy gold.
It was great. No, but I want to draw one of those. Let me cover a couple. So he says early on, Dennis Hopper, his character, he's also called a deacon. He's he's trying to break into the Atolla. Is that what you call it? The land, whatever. Atoll. Yeah. I apologize. I'm an idiot. Don't listen to me. What he says is, he's like trying to break in, and the gunner's shooting, and he's starting to turn, and he's starting to shoot his own people, and oh god, where's the line? He's like, well, maybe he doesn't answer to Chuck. Call him Charles. This is like I said, an apocalypse, and he's going formal with him. I start dying, and then when they're questioning, he's questioning the two people that give him information about the girl. He's like, well, do something. Right before that, he's like, do something. I hate sales. Like, it's such a simple line, but it's so good.
Oh no, I got another funnier one, Kevin, for you. So what happened with the gunner was shooting. He shot a harpoon, which was really smart, and pulled that gunner that was on that, not paying attention, and then basically blows up the deacon's ship. Well, after he gets blown up, he loses his eye, when he's back in the tanker ship, he gets his new eye painted on, and it looks fucking terrible. And everyone's like, it looks great. And then he talks with his daughter, and she's like, it looks like shit.
It's so good. It's not appreciated. I'm telling you, this movie is a banger.
I was like,
but there's other ones, like when he's he's interrogating two people, and he's like, all right, kill one. He just kills one of the guys. He's like, tell me. He's like, I won't kill whoever tells me. And the guy tells him, and he's like, he goes to shoot him, and he's like, you said we wouldn't kill me. He's like, oh, I might have, and he has somebody else shoot him. Yes. He's like, because he was gonna kill him anyways. Another scene that I thought was absolutely hilarious. So they're on the boat. It's Kevin Costner, Helen is the woman, and the little girl Enola, and they're getting chased by the smokers because they want the girl with the map. They're aware of the lore, and the airplane's flying, and it's circling them, and as they're circling, Kevin Costner knows they're trying to kill them or at least attack him, and the girl just goes, starts waving, and he just smacks her. What are you thinking about? Like, how do you not do that to your own kids? Like, what the hell is wrong with you? Shut up! Like, what are you doing? It was like perfect. Like, and she got smacked another time or two. Like, she was the most annoying kid, but it was so spot on how kids are. Like this didn't have a lot of lines. The plot wasn't crazy deep or anything, but this was so good. There were other elements to that. Like,
I got one, Kev.
Oh, you got another line?
That was a little, well, not necessarily a line, but like a small scene that was underrated. The old man in the tank at the bottom of the oil tank on the little rowboat. Yes. He's like, there's 4 inches left.
Yes. So there's so many little things. Dennis Hopper was amazing. But then they had other elements, like one of the opening parts of the scene. Kevin Costner's peeing and then drinking his own urine through a water filtration system, which you're like, that is such a huge important element of being an apocalyptic water world. Like, that is so good. When he runs into other people, they start speaking different languages. You don't know what languages survived and whatnot. That is such a little detail that's hugely important. Think of it now. Like, languages, the interactions we have in the U.S. are so vastly different. And adding more to that element, paper. People didn't know what paper was.
The second drifter was like,
I got some paper. Like,
you know what I can get with this?
But look at that. What was he bargaining for? He was bargaining for sex. That's literally what he's bargaining for. And to me, that is an element, like, if you were in that life, that might be hugely important. Circling around, like, the little girl was drawing trees and horses and people at that point. So that's why I think it might be decades. People are like, what the fuck is that? Like, what's a fucking tree? And like, they had plants. They had like the tomato plant.
Was one. They also had, it was either a lime plant or it was like an apple plant. It was in the first one.
I don't know what that was.
Stuff. So I know he bought the tomato plant from Helen. As far as that.
So like, they didn't know what trees were, and then he's like, oh yeah, and he's in a scene, and he's looking, and it's got like a trees on a National Geographic or Discovery book or whatever it was, and it's like, he's like, holy cow, she actually might know what she's looking at, having seen a picture of it himself. So there are such little details, I think, that are missed, or maybe not appreciated, is a better way of putting that totally tie into this, and having people like Smoker's Boat with how he's throwing spam at them and cigarettes, and they're just living like that. There's going to be these nasty communities. There's going to be this more, I don't want to say wholesome, from the atoll. Yes. From the atoll. And so that element, even there, like, they were kind of, weird and almost discriminatory. So it's even in a sense that there's so many different communities, but then you see the main guy being this mutant exile to go through what he does, and then have his de facto family at the end is just such a it's a good story even then, but it's even now, and I just, the hate that or maybe hate's not the strong word, but the lack of support of being, I think, a relatively good movie, I just have held my whole life, and people have just poo-pooed it. I'm like, this is such a good movie. I hate that it doesn't get more raving, like, not saying top tier quality, like, like The Departed might be for me. Like, that is one of the epitomes of the best movies I've ever seen. But it is still right below that. It is a good watch, even 30 years later. And I did watch it recently just to verify, because I needed to write down some of these lines, and they were worthwhile, if you ask me.
Yeah, I definitely think it was, even for its time, a different movie, a good movie. I think they could have done a little bit more with the Mariner's backstory, or explaining. Obviously, it was cool to see he had gills and the flippers, and or not the flippers, the web feet, excuse me. And how he went and dove and showed Helen as far as the underwater city. I thought that was really cool with the submarine crash down there and everything. I wish they would have kind of tied in, like, because even after I end the movie, he was like, I don't want to stay, this dry land is weird or whatever. I think they could have explored a little bit with him more, I think, and developed his character more. And same thing on the actor choices were great.
Well, before we get that,
as far as the Deacon, though, I think they could have definitely made him a bit more menacing. I feel like too. His lines were good. Obviously, his vehicles and guns and all that stuff. I just think he was more a comedic villain than an actual villain, in my opinion.
So before we get to more into characters, do you want to vote on like the plot, or is there you want? I would like to finish that because obviously they always tie together. But before I got some character elements I want to go into, but
sure.
I don't know if you have any more for story or anything.
No, I think I'm good on story.
All right, so story. Here we go. I'm going here. I know you guys are so surprised by my vote.
Okay.
By my vote.
I'm going to go good with story.
All right. So, yes, underrated story. But obviously, I think some of the lack of excitement might be towards the character element. And I do understand that. So don't get me wrong. Like I said, I actually think it's actually really cool that you never get Kevin Costner's name. I really do think he doesn't go by a name. I think the fact that he's a mutant in this world and they want to essentially kill him, which means they've seen him before and they've basically persecuted him and his kind to kill him. When in reality, he's like an X-Men. He's like the new generation. He's like an evolutionary step. Hell, I even was getting crazy and was like, dude, a sequel 30 years later with his son from the chick when they got to doing a hoobity boobity, like that would be crazy. Like you could do a full circle thing if you wanted to.
Kevin's available.
No, I'm not. So it's just you got so many things you could have done. Obviously, if they had success, but I think that was his character arc. That was just kind of cool, but it wasn't the only character arc. He was like, I don't want to talk to anybody. He got in that freaking atoll, and then he was like, I'm going to get out of here as fast as I can. And he couldn't, and he didn't. And he didn't want anything to do with the woman, and he didn't want to do anything to do with the girl. And guess what? He ended up protecting them, going after her when nobody else wanted to in the same community. He wanted to save her and all of that jazz, and yet he even called her his friend. And he through the part he you could tell he definitely hated her at first, like you said, but then he was giving her the crayon so she could color. He's like, she can't have it, but it's alone. I want to, and then he was even teaching her how to swim. Like that is such a huge element to show that you don't have to be anything, you just are a good person sometimes. And that's what he was. You just have good character, you have good morals, and that was something that sometimes is inherently there. And even though he didn't want to do anything with anybody as a character, that to me was so easy and awesome to see in the movie. That's why for him, I don't know why people wouldn't like to see that.
Yeah, and I think it even showed as far as when Helen like offered herself to him, and he kind of was intrigued, like you said, the human element, but he turned her down initially, again, being a survivor in the in the waters and stuff. And then later she kind of asks him, why didn't you want me? And he's like, because you didn't want me, and
for real,
I was like, that was like a really cool subtle thing that was also pretty cool as far as that. But
I agree, and so like I don't know that the little girl developed other than to be more annoying, but in a good way. Like, it was pretty funny. I think but the woman Helen, she even was like, oh, this, like she wasn't really inherently afraid of him or anything from the get-go. Like she didn't seem as judgy as the elders originally were.
Agreed.
But knowing, like, because even when they were saved by the old man in the floating like blimp thing, he was taken in with them because she had supported him. He had saved her and the girl. So I think there's an element. Okay, yeah, obviously he wasn't, quote, their kind, but to me, she grew trustworthy of him because like there's even a point where he threw Enola off the boat because she was coloring and she jumped in and he could have easily just kept going and he turned around and he picked him up and just basically like, oh yeah, and then he ended up cutting the hair off at one point when Helen broke the boat on accident, which was funny because it's like he didn't hit him, he didn't do anything like that, he still kept him around, but he wanted to like do something. It was so
teach him a lesson. And I agree, and that's something also I wanted to touch upon, as you said, Kevin. I think as far as Enola being different or a freak, along with him being kind of an outsider, they kind of connected along with the inventor. His name was Old Gregor, who made the gas balloon. They all kind of connected being, I guess, the freaks and just appreciating, hey, I'm different, but that doesn't mean I can't be respectful of you, and I can be accepting. And yes, Enola was annoying as fuck to the Mariner. But again, she stood up with him saying, I'm not scared of you, and she was definitely different. He was different. And I think even though she was annoying, she grew on him. And she got respect from him and then became friends, and
absolutely. So with that said, I do want to circle back to the Deacon. Obviously, he didn't seem like he was your favorite character, but I would disagree. I love that aspect about him, that he wasn't menacing because he had that kind of level of, for any of those Borderland fans, he was like a handsome Jack to me. He's a funny, evil guy. Like, that's what he said. He said these one-liners that made you laugh, but really he was evil to the core. He was selfish. He was doing whatever he wanted to. So those lines depicted it. He was also a showman as he was doing his speech on the boat, and he was deceptively evil in that sense. But I liked it. I thought Dennis Hopper, was amazing with that. The eye. I don't know whose idea of that, but as a whole, how they used that was fabulous. So I think he was a great villain. I actually wish they would have had more one-liners for him. I think that would have been better. I don't think they needed a ton of dialogue. I think there was an element of that that plays into, hey, you got people that don't normally talk a whole lot, not interacting with a lot of people, especially the Mariner. He's by himself the whole time. And then you see some of the other people, they literally going crazy when they're by themselves. The old guy, he was psycho, guy. And so they even him, that was an element of just showing that. So the character for me with the Deacon was just spot on. They had that other, I can't remember like who he was, but he was like he almost seemed like a gun for hire, unless he was a smoker.
Was it the long-haired guy?
Yeah, the long-haired guy.
That was
the double agent.
His name was the Nord.
Yeah, I don't know if he just went to the smokers for that reason, or if he actually was a smoker to begin with. It's not clear. So, like I said, some characters are like that, but I think that's how it was because most of the character importance was really most of those four characters right there: the girl, the woman, Kevin Costner, and the Deacon. Those there are a couple of more supporting characters on it, but that's about it.
Yeah, the supporting characters, Old Gregor, like I said, with the gas balloon, of course. We just talked about the Nord, who was the long-haired enforcer. He might have been undercover for the smokers, kind of trying to get the information, or just kind of sided with them to make that alliance, knowing obviously kind of the map. Really not clearly explained, but that was fascinating. Again, both of the drifters, even the first one stealing his fruit while, Kevin Costner was underwater, and then the second one was getting obviously the Louchens and trained for both the women, and then basically gets jacked by freaking Kevin Costner, the Mariner, underside after 30 minutes, half hour. I only got a half hour.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that I think they had their strong stars, and then they had their supporting actors, which I think filled in nice. So the casting, I don't think could have done any better as far as that. And the dialogue, like I said, could have been a little bit better, but overall, I think it was solid. It was good.
Yeah, I don't think the dialogue was bad. I just think like I would have been okay with a little more, but at the same time, not too much. Because, like I said, you know, you're talking about a time period where people aren't exactly seeing each other and interacting with each other, so it's not like they want to say a lot to each other necessarily, or they do say each other. You know, with the smokers, because it was a bigger community. Okay, yeah, you see more. That's why I said the Deacon's one-liners could have been definitely more and better, but at the same time, Kevin Costner didn't need to have a lot of lines. And you know, he didn't need to have like a happy-go-lucky face. He wasn't putting on a show. He was by himself all the time. Who's he trying to be happy with? You know, he's not trying. So when he does actually show some emotion, that to me is where the development is. That he didn't need it. He didn't have it before because there wasn't a scenario for it. But now, as he has this family, and then it gets to the end, and I think that's the part that's really cool, because a lot of times movies want to end on a note. Oh well, happily ever after. In a sense, it is, but at the same time, he's like, I'm not right here, and he knew it, and it led to him leaving, and the girl was unhappy, but they're like, we understand. It's like, yeah, he's also he's a mutant with gills, so it made more sense for him to be on the go. I if anything, like, you could have used, oh, here's some pamphlet flyers to hand out to certain people, like to build a more community if you wanted to, although you'd have to explain that, and that probably doesn't go well.
They call that, Kevin, the hero's journey.
The heroes. You don't really have that anymore. Not really in a lot of the movies and shows that I recall over the last decade or two. So this is an older style movie. Like, it's Road Warrior on the water, man. I'm telling you.
What if no one's ever seen Road Warrior, though, Kevin? Well, it's post-apocalyptic. Basically, no cities other than floating. Wreckage.
The Road Warrior was remade though. So what's her name?
So Mad Max, I'm more familiar.
Mad Max, Fury Road or whatever. That, I guess it wasn't remade. Furiosa. Whatever it is, but it's the same idea. It's still flowing in there. So I think the characters, although the main ones are minimal, and the lines aren't great, so I could understand the hesitation with that. I still think the arcs are good. I still think the development is there. Once again, it's something to. You don't have to like hardcore look into of what's going on. You can see it happening. You just, maybe it's not for everyone.
All right, ready to put a vote to this?
All right, let's do the vote. All right. Brian's actually got some good thoughts today. So, the next group we'll advance towards is the sound and music, and you know me, so excited about this topic.
Kevin's favorite category.
Look, it's fine. It's fine. There's nothing that I don't even recall music, to be honest with you. Like, sound effects were on point, so I got nothing.
So I really had to pay attention to music in this one, Kevin. It had like drums and African music and like whistles and flutes and like light music. There was at one point though like a Blues Brothers-esque sound when they were driving with the car.
That. Yeah, that was good. That was good. It was the Blues Brothers. Yeah, that was
basically the only memorable thing I remember from it. But yeah, it was fine, not overblown. It was fitting for the movie, but it wasn't anything that blew me away. So I'm gonna vote mid on this one.
That's where I'm at.
It's fine for the movie. It
I'm with you.
Blow me away or anything like that. So we'll move over to special effects, visuals, editing, wardrobe, that sort of thing.
So this didn't need a lot of special effects, but there were some. I think the only thing that looked bad to me was the air balloon, the blimp thing. That you could see when it was in the scenes and it was the whole view. It was definitely old school 90s graphics, but you kind of expect that being that old, personally. So, but it didn't bother me. It didn't ruin the scene. You could just be like, oh, that looks like not normal. outside of that, like the explosions were on par, the action was on par. Like he's going up and down the sails. I thought it was unique that he had this boat that you kick a thing here and punch a thing there, and all of a sudden the sails are open. I don't know how any of that works. It was really cool. The was it those doors? You know, like the guns jamming up was really cool and exciting to see. You got to remember, this is the ocean and years after the fact, so having gun trouble makes sense so much more. But even the adaptation of the vehicles, like it made sense of how they would look and how they would run. They didn't run great. They smoked. They like took a like that. That makes sense, right? So there's no EV battery vehicles going around. Right? You don't see any of that. I thought it was about what you would expect special effects. Nothing crazy, but once again, post-apocalyptic at that time, you wouldn't have it either. So yeah.
I actually really enjoyed the visuals for this movie, Kevin, even for its time, because I think it even still holds up. You mentioned a couple of the downsides of stuff, but I think it really showed how bleak the world was. And again, you got a tomato plant here, an apple tree there, you know, the deacon driving his car through like on the freaking tanker like it's a parade and he's throwing out cigarettes and shit. That was freaking so epic, you know. And you kind of alluded to it earlier when he's at the top of the tanker, the battleship, where he comes out to make his speech like he's a king on the balcony and stuff like that, speaking with his
dictator almost. Yeah.
So like the visual of that was pretty awesome. I mean, there was some actually really, really cool action scenes too. Like again, the opening scene with the smokers and the drifter, and he had to really make a choice between getting his bag that's like in the water, or getting away from the actual smokers, and basically that's where he got robbed. And and he's like, okay, well, is he gonna freaking go for the bag, or is he gonna get away from the smokers? What does he do? Fucking both. So like he literally does,
and then gets back at the guy too.
It's like, how in the hell? So yeah, that was a really cool action sequence. Again, when he shot the harpoon and pulls the gunner into the line of sight and blows up the captain's boat. Again, he's like,
Jack Black was in that movie. I didn't know that. I think that was him, or he's one of those guys. Yeah, Jack Black's in the film. When I was looking at characters,
I'll have to look it up. Another scene that I liked was, when Enola and Helen were starving on the boat and they're asking for food, and he actually uses himself as bait and jumps in the water, and this giant shark-looking creature eats them and cuts them out, and then basically makes them, dinner and stuff. Another cool scene I liked, Kev, was the ambush scene at the outpost, where he uses the spyglass in the underwater, and they have those. That was cool. Yes, they have all these dudes like hiding underwater with the jet skis, and then they have the dead people tied up. And
like that. Literally, that's like classic Tom and Jerry crap that they had going on. Like, hey, I'm really alive.
I just thought that was so like creative with that storytelling. Even just like the underwater where he takes her and makes that air bubble thing, whatever it is, to take her underwater, and she, deep dives under, water to see the city basically in the crashed submarine. I thought that was such a visual thing, and then he grabs the dirt, and throws it up in the air, and he's like, oh, that's your dry land, basically symbolizing that, and he made
wasn't there even a Pepsi can? There was a submarine down there.
Yeah, there was a submarine.
But there was a Pepsi,
and then there was that
school Pepsi.
Shit, there was obviously a city and stuff. He also made a zip line to catch the airplane, which was freaking awesome, where he took the hook, and then one of the last action scenes that stood out to me was when Enola was shot in the back and fell out of the air balloon. Basically, they made a makeshift bungee, and he bungee jumps from the...
Tie me off!
yeah, from the air balloon, dropped down, got her, and then picked her back up. So I thought those elements were really freaking cool with all those scenes.
Yeah, I didn't think they were crazy special effects, but you're right. The action scenes were there, and they tied into some classic 80s, 90s action scenes, if you ask me. And I think those are better than outside of your martial arts movies, where those are very top tier for me. Like when you get just those kind of action scenes, the running around, the bungee jump, like that was. I thought they were awesome. Like I said, it never really got to a point where it was too long in the story. Usually you'd get a little slower, like you get the dialogue in, he's interacting with her, and then all of a sudden they see something, or they come up to something, that's when the action. So it's never really a lull throughout the whole thing, which is, so I thought the action was not overbearing. It was appropriate, and it was right, and the scenes were good.
It was appropriate until a couple of things got unbelievable to me and a little bit far-fetched. So, like, when the deacon shoots the freaking pinpoint with a freaking rifle, I was like, there's no way he's a sharpshooter in freaking that. And then another scene is they were getting away in the air balloon, and he makes this perfect shot to Enola, and she basically falls out of the air balloon. So those things I was
Well, he didn't hit her. He hit the craft, and that shook, and then she fell.
Okay, I thought he shot her.
No, he didn't shoot her. He hit the craft, and that made it stumble because she was sitting on the ledge, and then she fell over.
Well, but even then, like he's definitely putting it.
But that would tie to him being a sharpshooter.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying he is, or the expectation should be that, but that doesn't mean he can't be a good shot.
Yeah, that's true.
It's not like you hit him in the back of the head. He hit him right here on the side. You're just aiming for the back. You hope you hit him. So I don't hate that, but I hear the argument. I think the potentially unbelievable aspect more than that would be the girl shooting the arrow into the plane, or the harpoon into the plane. That I could find more, because it's not like she shoots. I can't imagine she shoots harpoons that often. That's all I'm saying.
It was a lucky shot, that's what that was.
Where it got through the guy, he died, and it harpooned the plane. That one to me is more unbelievable than the guy. Like, so I feel like the deacon shoot would probably be more on par than her doing that.
Yeah, but I guess, like I said, the action scenes, like you already kind of touched upon, the guns and vehicles, just the Gatling gun, the flame flinger, the flame crossbow, the SMGs and pistols, the airplane with the skiers breaking into the atoll, the air balloon, the guy who's a kamikaze who just has a bow of spikes that makes a hole in the side of the thing. I'm just like...
He literally goes kamikaze.
Yeah, he literally goes kamikaze. So, but I thought it was cool that it was basically inspired by, like, these trimaran boats, or whatever yachts that they built for the movie. So I thought, like, those things were just really cool. And again, growing up with us going to Missouri and being on the water and stuff like that, I thought that was just a cool element of it.
Like, it really is an element that, even though we, been camping, we've gone boating, we've been on the water, we didn't live that life, and that's so we're projecting what they are. So I'm sure that obviously people in this world live their life in a boat, probably more often than not. But like, to be the only option, that towards the end they literally said he's got land sickness.
Yes.
Because nobody's been on land. They don't even know what it's like not to move in the shift. But like, those little lines, those little details, those little thoughts, like mixed with the action and how that worked, you're like, yeah, I don't know. It was so good. I hate that it gets trashed on, and I will, to the end of days, I will defend, like, hey, this was good. You got to look at, like, when I think one of my favorite scenes is when he just goes up the rope and gets pulled all the way to the top, and he walks to get the thing. I'm like, that, and then he comes to go back down. He runs, and he just jumps his back to the sail and just slides all the way down. Like, he knows his bow. He knows how to do that. He just knows everything about that. And I love it. I just love it.
That was Pirates aspect for me, and we'll talk about
which stole it then from here.
Yeah, we'll talk about that next. So let's give a rating on how we feel about special effects and visuals and editing. I'm solid on that one for sure.
All right, yeah, that's positive as far as that goes. So I guess we're gonna get to a redundant level here, but as far as watchability, rewatchability, emotional connection, kind of just overall satisfaction, I mean, I'll let you go first.
I mean, we're not even doing this episode if it wasn't for Kevin. So.
Okay, all right. Then I'll go first. All right. Now, I literally told Brian, I was like, when we were looking about stuff, we want to mix in some new topics. We want to mix in some old stuff too. Just stuff we like, stuff we're passionate about. This was literally one of the first things I thought of, and as I said, I have irrational passion that this is such a good movie. It's enjoyable. It's fun. There's real things you can see if you really want to dig into it. But then at surface level, it's relatively wholesome. I love it. I own it. It's still on DVD because I'm old as hell and like that style. I like hard copies still because I'm not paying for everything on digital still. I will defend it to the end of days. It is a good movie. It's a good concept. It's a good story. The characters are fun. The lines are fun. And you know what? Maybe it's because I watched it when I was younger and it just has a special place in my heart. But I think overall you can just be like, you know what? That's you can at least enjoy the watch, even if you don't love to rewatch it like I might.
Yeah, I mean, it has a special place in my heart, but let's knock you down a couple notches here, Kevin. See what a lot of other people have said. So, it's got a lot of
them.
It's got a lot of mixed reviews. Roger Ebert.
Okay. First off, fuck them critics. They don't know their ass from their elbow. They don't take views from a real viewer's perspective. I have tons of movies I love that they hate. They love stuff that I think is trash as. So I just want to preface that with some of these fucking bullshit reviews. But go on. Enjoy.
So he gave it 2.5 out of 4 stars, which is terrible. The cost controversy, which we'll talk about shortly. Waterworld is a decent futuristic action picture with some great sets, some intriguing ideas, and a few images that still stay with me. Well, for Kevin, they are still definitely here. It could have been more, it could have been better, and could have made me care about the characters. It's one of those marginal pictures you're not unhappy to have seen, but can't quite recommend.
I disagree because I recommend it. You suck.
So Owen Gleiberman gave it a B in Entertainment Weekly. He commented that while it's a massive budget had paid off by genuinely creating the sensation of a world built on water, the film generally came off as a second-rate ripoff of The Road Warrior, as Kevin mentioned to earlier, or Mad Max 2, with weaker, slower-paced action sequences and less startling villains.
I wouldn't call it a ripoff. Because other people were doing the same stuff at the same time. I think it's the same context of idea as I stated. I didn't read any reviews. So that surprising we both have the same idea that it was a road warrior on water. But I still think the idea is there. Yeah, the characters aren't as good, but to be honest with you, Road Warrior doesn't have great character or development. If you've watched that, Mel Gibson's character's prefaced from a previous movie, so that doesn't even count. He's just cool. He barely says any words in The Road Warrior, if you really want to get into that context. And the only guy that's cool is that crazy freaking weirdo, like, kind of tomahawk looking mofo in that movie. And he's got that weird, like, dude that's kind of like a pale-faced lesbian or something. I don't know. He's weird, and he's hanging out with him the whole time. He dies. The tomahawk dude freaks out, but there's not lines there. There's no development. So if you want to compare the two, I'd say you at least have more dialogue in this than that. But I still love that movie, and I do recommend that one. But to say it's a second-rate version of that, maybe because it came out, I think Road Warrior came out first, and that's probably why it is. I don't know. I'd imagine so if he's saying it's a second-rate version of that. I still think that the idea of it's, for especially that time and more now, more relative.
Well, let's see what a lot more of the audience versus critics say on Rotten Tomatoes. It holds an approval rating of 60% based on 136 reviews. I didn't see yours, though, Kev. The site's critics' consensus reads, Waterworld is ultimately an ambitious misfire, an extravagant sci-fi flick with some decent moment and a lot of silly ones.
When were these reviews done? I'm just curious. Was it more recent or is it more back then? Do you know?
That's a good question. I would have to look that up.
Because, like I said, I feel like I do feel like Kevin Costner's got a lot of hate in his career from what I remember of being a teenager to now. Like, I just don't feel like people like him as much, and I feel like there is a little bit of that played personally. But at the same time, like I said, it's not the greatest film of all time, but it is a good film. So 60% to me is pretty, to me, like you never see 100 really, right? Not in movies. You don't really see 100. I say the best you typically see is in the 90s. To me, this is at least the 70 to 80% if we're going to actually go to 80%. It's a good movie. You'll like it. If it comes on, like, you know, actually people don't stream this. They stream, so it's different. But if you used to, you know, be old as hell as me and you used to sit and something would just come on the regular TV, you know what I mean? Like you'll it's on. I'll watch it. It's one of those things, but and I still think you could watch it, you know, but I don't. I think it just gets more hate than it deserves. I actually think it's more enjoyable, but I mean, I'm an idiot, so why are you guys even listening?
I'm not gonna debate you there, Kev. I think they're more from when the time came out, but it did have the most recent critical response it talks about from Wikipedia even, which is cited in 2020 retrospective. Ben Child of The Guardian, so this was 6 years ago, he described it as a perfectly watchable sci-fi cult classic that deserves reappraisal. He acknowledged that much of the plot was illogical and absurd, and some of the action set pieces preposterously ambitious, but argued that both of them offer excitement and a B-movie charm. That's a pretty good.
But at the same time, like
depiction,
it's you know, I think it might have been a movie. They say a cult classic, but I think it was really more ahead of its time. I don't think people, like I said, especially nowadays with how much polar caps are melting and the atmosphere is changing with our temperature. Like it is not what it used to be. And if this came out now, I think you're really more on par to what what people would be like, oh yeah. So I think it was the opposite. Back then I feel like people were more fearful or thinking if the apocalypse happened it'd be a desert apocalypse from like nuclear attacks or stuff like that. Whereas in like the water life it might be now. Yes, I won't get into too much. I feel like realistically, if you watch how deep this city was, to how much water cap there is, to how much flooding the planet would have to happen, I don't know that it would really happen to that degree, but I think it could. Like, in theory, if everything melted, definitely land's going underwater for sure, and probably a lot of it. I just don't think it'd be like it looked like maybe something as big as Hawaii at most. You know what I mean? I don't think it'd be that much, but I don't know.
Yeah, and one last tidbit that I was reading about, Kev, which is interesting, which they're saying this was like a box office failure or a bomb.
Yes, it
talked
was.
about the reason why, because I guess I was reading into it a little bit. Before filming began, and you may not know this, Kevin, Steven Spielberg actually warned Costner and Reynolds not to film on open water because of his own production difficulties with Jaws, actually. The production was hampered by difficulties in obtaining otherwise simple shots due to poor weather, safety concerns, and the camera crew being pushed out of position by waves. So one of the floating sets sank in heavy seas and had to be repaired. And they did use water in like a production studio as well. But I just found that a little fascinating with that little nugget.
I did not know
and that put it way over budget doing that. So it was like that's why they kind of say that it was a box office failure, because stuff got pushed back and they had to refilm and reshoot because of doing it on open water versus in like a production studio where you can be a more controlled environment.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the reasons why it was proclaimed at one point like one of the biggest flops, is because the financials put into the output that it gets, right? Your value of that is that. So if it was a low income movie and it doesn't do much, well, it's not considered a big flop because it didn't really spend a lot of movie. The only thing that's getting the notoriety is the financials. So that, I think, played an element to it, and that background is something I didn't know. So that could have been a huge reason for it. So obviously, I don't care about the financials of making a movie. What I care about is the movie itself, because I'm not in the business of making the movies. So as a whole, I think yes, it might be a cult classic, and it might be one of my favorites, but I think it's a totally good watch. It was PG-13 back there. There are, like I said, a lot of sexual contexts. You don't really see anything sexual. Although the chick, I think you see her butt cheeks in the one scene.
She does get naked. Yeah.
That's the only thing you see, though. And then, but the idea of what's about to happen is there multiple times.
Some of the language is vulgar in some of the
yeah,
scenes.
Who cares about that shit?
So, but I think we're ready to rate this.
All right, rewatchability. I know nobody has any idea what I'm gonna do. Oh my god, that's so surprising.
I'll go positive. So I think we're ready to move on. How we overall rating and summary of the movie, Kev.
Like I said,
which I've kind of already talked about.
It's not the best film, but it is a good movie. If you haven't seen it, I recommend it. If you haven't seen it in a long time, I do recommend watching it again too, because I think you'll enjoy certain elements of just maybe some older actors now at a younger form. But just the movie itself, like I said, if you like that, if you're trying to watch something romantic, it's not a love story, so don't do that. But give it a go. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean, if you were giving letter grades, it would be a solid B. If we were doing thumb ratings, it would be a solid 4 out of 5 from me, probably.
I think that, like I said, that's about par. But that's a good movie. You know what I mean? So that's all I'm saying. So yeah. I will hate on these critics that are hating on my shit because they suck, and I hate you, and you suck. That's all I'm saying.
Well, with that being said, I think we're going to wrap up. Again, thank you for tuning into this episode and supporting us thus far. If you've made it to the end of this video or episode, we appreciate you listening to us Louchen Bros.
If you've made it this far, there might be something wrong with you to listen to me and my brother. But at the same time, we really appreciate it. We enjoy being able to do this. It's fun. It's weird. It's different for me. But like we've been saying, give us some clues, some context, so whatever. If we screw something up, I think I've listened to some stuff before. I might have been a little off on a name or something like that, but a toll, whatever. You know what I mean? But like, yeah, go ahead and give us feedback. Or even future ideas. I'm looking to do some different things outside of my normal, and I'm okay with that.
We appreciate you calling out Kevin on all his mistakes.
There's not that many. There can't be. It's impossible.
But anyhow, please support these nerds by subscribing, following us, and letting us know what would you like to see us review.
Like, subscribe, whatever those things are. Clicky click buttons. We appreciate it. Thank you.
See you later. Peace out, nerds.